England. Those English bands were sent over here by Tavistock to run those mind control experiments. Um, when you see it in the MK Ultra, they talk about the American bands, and they talk about the influence of LSD in the music of Jimi Hendrix, and the influences of heroin and some of the others like Janis Joplin and like that. And they talked about how that when they use those particular drugs, they are able to tap into a frequency in their mind that allows them to download more artistic expressions on a broader range. So this is why Jimi Hendrix was able to be so innovative when he was using the LSD. He was taking those acid trips and he was bringing the music back. Now, if you go back and research Mozart, Mozart used to sit in meditation and hear the entire symphony play, and then he'd go write it down. And then he'd come back and they say it was the greatest music. The same with the other greats like Bach and Beethoven. They all was using what they call hermetic harmonics in order to download what they call the songs of the spheres, which are different tones that's made by the different spheres or realms of creation, what they call the dimensions. Each dimension has its own vibration. And when they tap into that, they're able to bring that into a musical symphony, so to speak. This is the same place where you get great poets like Arthur Rimbaud and Khalil Gibran and Augmandino is a great like little short story writers. Those they all draw that higher knowledge of expression and filter it through the right brain in order for it to become artistic. And they call those masters. So when you're reading the work of the masters, it's like when you're reading Bacon, it's not the same as reading Anne Rice. Anne Rice is a good writer, but she's no Francis Bacon. And then you have those that's so technical that has no, like Blavatsky's work will make a PhD shake his head like, man, how is she doing this if she didn't have an education on that level? And they all tap into that energy grid. So your mind work like a computer is to distract you from what's going on at home by pointing you overseas. That's the chess game. That's the distraction. It's like they slap you and then they point down the street like it's that person down the street that did it. Look, he over there. So you daze a little bit and you looking, you ain't quite figured it out yet. So I'm just gonna go on and point it out to you. It's a distraction from something. Don't trust it. He don't tell you America need to put sanctions on China. No, America need to figure out what's going on in America. That's what they need to do before they go over there messing with them people. What you want more of, cuz? They give more. Ask a question. But yeah, I put in the question format. I don't know what you want me to answer. Um, if you ask a question, then we can take it from there. Um, anytime you have a bully on the playground, right? Um, all of the people see the bully on the playground, but don't nobody want to address it because he's the bully. So they run and get the bully to stop the new bully. It don't make no sense. Stop him from picking, and then him and the new bullies both scared each other, so they become friends and they be bullies together. You got to deal with what's in front of you before you deal with what's down the street from you. And different people have different levels of responsibility, so they have to handle things differently. Um, these levels of responsibility determines how many people is affected by the moves they make. Um, so um, Pay attention to how they point you in the political arena, because most of it is to distract you from the underlying agenda. The underlying agenda has always been conquest. Um, the American presidential seat has been an interim seat, and it has expired. And that's why you didn't have any flags at the Republican convention, no American flag, because they already know that the contract has expired on the treaty. And the treaty was for a specific amount of time, and that's why they had to have the seals in place to show you all of the signs. So you had to be able to see how the contract was being followed, meaning following the money. The money is the mark that traces back to the beast. The beast is in the Vatican, and you call him the Pope. The cat's paw that he used is the Queen of England. See, they used the barristers in the judicial system. See, Judah is the judicial system. And the bar means sun. So you got the Bar Association, or the Association of the Sun. You know, so it all ties back to those biblical references. The 12 banks or 13 banks, they all tie into the tribes of Israel in order to match up with what it say in that book. They did it on purpose. It's not an accident. They did it on purpose, and they did it in our face. And they got the tribes broke up, and it show you that the 13 colonies was not just the East Coast, but when they did the treaty agreement, it was an agreement between the Iroquois Federation. Some of us know today's info. So what type of solutions? Tavistock Institute of Humanism, Conditioning, Mind Control. Tavistock was they was instrumental in the MK Ultra program, and they was the part of the MI5 division in the mind control game. So Tavistock was behind the creation of the Beatles because they wanted to know if certain tones in the music would affect the central nervous system and influence the children to behave in a frenzy. So they experimented with certain musical notes and musical frequency at Tavistock in the 40s and 50s, and then they came out with the Beatles as a test pilot. They followed that up by doing supporting music for other major rock bands like the Stones. Most of those ones that came from England, those English bands were sent over here by Tavistock to run those mind control experiments. When you see it in the MK Ultra, they talk about the American bands, and they talk about the influence of LSD in the music of Jimi Hendrix, and the influences of heroin and some of the others like Janis Joplin and like that. And they talked about how that when they use those particular drugs, they are able to tap into a frequency in their mind that allows them to download more artistic expressions on a broader range. So this is why Jimi Hendrix was able to be so innovative when he was using the LSD. He was taking those acid trips, and he was bringing the music back. Now, if you go back and research Mozart used to sit in meditation and hear the entire symphony play, and then he'd go write it down. And then he'd come back and they say it was the greatest music. The same with the other greats like Bach and Beethoven. They all was using what they call hermetic harmonics in order to download what they call the songs of the spheres, which are different tones that's made by the different spheres or realms of creation, what they call the dimensions. Each dimension has its own vibration. And when they tap into that, they're able to bring that into a musical symphony, so to speak. This is the same place where you get great poets like Arthur Rimbaud and Khalil Gibran, and Augustine is a great like little short story writers. Those, they all draw that higher knowledge of expression and filter it through the right brain in order for it to become artistic. And they call those masters. So when you're reading the work of the masters, it's like when you're reading Bacon, it's not the same as reading Anne Rice. Anne Rice is a good writer, but she's no Francis Bacon. And then you have those that's so technical that has no, like Blavatsky's work will make a PhD shake his head like, man, how is she doing this if she didn't have an education on that level? And they all tap into that energy grid. So your mind works like a computer. You got RAM, which is your short-term memory. Then you got your hard drive or your mainframe, which is your long-term memory. And then you have the World Wide Web, which is your universal mind. Once you overload your RAM, then you start working from your hard drive. But then once you got everything organized in your hard drive is filled, you have to you would need a broader space, so you got to move up into the cloud. And this is what they call your ascension. When you start to allow the universal mind to filter through your brain, you become more than just a regular person. You know, so this is what the frequencies and tones that they experimented with at Tavistock. More recent was the rapper that got murdered named XXXTentacion or whatever his name is. He had started tapping into certain frequencies in which he told him about it. And when he tapped into these frequencies, they told him not to use those frequencies because they wake people up. He didn't want him to use those frequencies. And so he was marked for death from that point on. So however they made it look is how they made it look. Whether he really did or not remains to be seen, because a lot of them that become marked for death, they got a plan B. Just so y'all know, a lot of them that's marked for death and we think they're gone, they had a plan B all the time. So at this point, from a standpoint of higher wisdom, we can't fall for the misdirection. We can't let them undermine what we're doing with trying to move into a more functional humanity, for the sacrifice and the trying to stay in these lower vibrations and these lower frequencies of the animal nature. I'm gonna make sure I touched on everything in that one. Anything else, cuz? Yeah, the Tavistock, MK Ultra, went into the mind control game. Locks and triggers. Locks and triggers is part of the mind control game too. And they work like, they also call them anchors. So if you watch that movie with Mel Gibson, Conspiracy Theory, I think it's called, where he sees certain things that make certain light bulbs go off in his head. That's called locks and triggers. So one of the most popular lock trigger mechanisms was a book called The Catcher in the Rye. And it was real easy to use that book because of the written style of it to install the locks and triggers. And that's why all of the assassins had multiple copies of it, because it became an irresistible impulse. Wherever they seen the book, they had to get it. So you look at serial killers that had copies of it. You look at assassins that had copies of it. You know, like that. So the locks and the triggers is how they set them off. Sometimes they'll call them up and say a phrase on the phone, and the hypnosis will click their assassin on. They'll go out and do some dirt and don't never know they did it. And they be wondering why they're sitting in prison for the rest of their life and they never knew what they did. Because they activated their altar. The hard part is trying to find out if you have an altar. Because it's some of us that they've been programming with multiple personalities since children, and we don't even know it. They did it in the school systems, and some of them they even did it in the hospitals, where they use certain mind control techniques to give us an alter ego that they can activate for their own purposes whenever they want to, drive us insane and make us go off the handle. Just the fact that we even question the idea make it more likely for us to discover whether we have an altar implanted or not. You know, so most people don't got an altar, but some people do. And they'll know that certain things ain't right, but they won't know what it is, and they'll never be able to explain it where anybody can understand it, because they're looking from two different, distinctly different personalities. One is absolutely sociopathic, and the other one is regular, empathic, um, um, caring, forget giving, and all of that. But the altar is sociopathic, has no regard for anything, worse than entitlement. You know, so when they click it in, he just gonna do the job. So that's how they program it. The references for those mind control assassin was a hypnotist by the name of Esther Brooks, who worked in the MK Ultra program, and he wrote extensively on how he had discovered ways to turn people into hypno assassins and to use it for espionage purposes and various things. He laid it all out for everybody to know. He was the original hypnotist. He was recruited into the MK Ultra program because he was the best in the world at the time, and he was from this country. He was born over here. So they decided to use his work as the controlling work for the MK Ultra hypno assassin program. We call them Manchurian candidates now, because that's what they were. The whole Manchurian candidate thing was predicated on that. You know, so don't fall for that look overseas stuff. When they tell us to look overseas, say, no, let's look right here in our backyard. Tell them to look in their own backyard before they start telling us to look overseas. We ain't finna go for that. And that's how countries go to war over some foolishness. Like Vietnam over a $1 bet. Come on, between billionaires. Send all them kids off to get blowed to smithereens. Can't do that to people. And so, I'm going to wrap this one up. I don't got no more questions popping up on the screen. Dealt with the audacity, ignorance, MK Ultra, Tavistock, Esther Brooks. We dealt with the misdirection of the politicians to make us look overseas instead of at home. So we covered a nice little bit of base. What's up, God? Covered a nice little bit of basis today. Hey Zoe, can you hit me up? I need to know if I could come pick them programs up so I could do some work. And I needed one more thing. So I'm gonna wrap it up here, and we can review this information later. So thank y'all for being interested in what I had to say. I just want y'all to pay attention to what's going on around y'all, so y'all can't be fooled. And keep your eyes open and don't fall for the shenanigans and the misdirection. And don't be surprised at the audacity of ignorance. I'm gonna do some invites here. We're gonna do a little discussion on Black history, and we're gonna find out what Black history is really all about from the science of Black history. This is kind of clever. So when you look at various things around the world, we begin to develop a bird's eye view and see things a little different. The more you expose to, the broader your vision become. The more you're able to see, and the more you're able to decipher. So as you go through these varying degrees of awakening, you get to see the language that's been concealed right over your head. So I'm gonna do a couple more invites here, and we're gonna get off into Black History. This one is for Carter G, Miseducation of the Negro, founder of Negro History Week, which became Black History Month. So we're gonna do this from miseducation to education. The awakening the genius of the black child, Amos N. Wilson, Blueprint for Black Power. We gonna do this one for him. We gonna do this one for the unveiling of the psychopathic racial personality by Bobby Wright. We gonna show you that the people are functional